The most beautiful child. The people of Mecca had an age-long custom in their culture. Newborn babies weren't breastfed by their own mothers. The babies were given to wet nurses who lived in the pastures. Mecca's weather was usually very hot and humid. These conditions didn't really benefit the vulnerable bodies of the babies. However, the weather in the pastures was nice. The water was sweet and clean. It was possible for the children to learn how to speak properly too, because those people who lived in the pastures spoke more correctly. The women who lived in the pastures would go down to Mecca once or twice a year. They would take the newborn babies and go back to their homes. The child to be taken care of would sometimes stay with her wet nurse for 2-3 years. The wet nurses would sometimes receive some presents in return for the care they gave to the babies. Our Prophet was a newborn and many wet nurses from around had come to Mecca. These women came from the sons of the Beni Sa'd tribe. Each woman found a suitable baby to nurse. But none of them wanted to take the Prophet because he was an orphan. He had lost his father 2 months before he came into the world. The women thought that no good would come from a baby who was an orphan. However, there was one woman who was left behind and her name was Halimeh. Her other friends had taken the newborn babies, but she was too late. She was very unhappy because she didn't want to go back empty-handed. Everyone had found a baby suitable for themselves. How could she go back with no baby? The mother and grandfather of our Prophet were both very sad. They couldn't find a wet nurse for our Prophet. At that time, Halimeh was walking in the streets of Mecca feeling very sad. She was desperately hoping to find a child to nurse. Abdul-Muttalib was also walking in the streets trying to find a nurse for his grandchild. Then at one point, Halimeh and Abdul-Muttalib came across each other in the street. It was as if they were looking for each other. Then our Prophet's grandfather and Halimeh had a conversation like this. "Where are you from?" "I'm from the Beni Sa'd tribe." "What is your name?" "Halimeh." "Good. Being a calm person is a good virtue." Abdul-Muttalib then said, "Hey Halimeh, I have an orphan with me and he's my grandchild." The other women said, "He's an orphan and no good would come from him," and so they didn't want to nurse him. "Come with me and breastfeed him if you like. There is holiness in his face. I hope that he brings you joy and happiness." Halimeh was tired of looking for a child to nurse, and there seemed to be no babies left in the city. In her heart, she accepted his offer. Halimeh went straight to her husband to ask him what he thought, and she explained the situation. She was relieved after hearing what he said. "Of course, go straight away and take that orphan. It doesn't mean that he is abandoned because he has no father. The owner of orphan is Allah." Halimeh was very pleased after hearing these words. Afterwards, she went to our Prophet's grandfather. "My husband agreed with your offer. I will take the baby." Together, they went to the house where our Prophet was. The divine Muhammad, peace be upon him, was sleeping in his mother's poor house. He was wrapped in a piece of cloth whiter than wool. Underneath, there was another piece of cloth that had been knitted in green. His room smelled beautiful. Halimeh went up to the divine child. Suddenly, she felt like she was going to faint. She had never seen a baby whose face shined so brightly until now. She was amazed. She felt so warm and close to him that she didn't want to wake him up. Halima's happiness replaced her sadness. She felt as if she was light as a bird. She had wandered in the streets for hours with the distress of not being able to find a baby to nurse. But now she felt like she could fly with joy because she had now met the most beautiful baby in the world. Halima couldn't wait any longer, and she went up to the baby. She slowly picked up the cloth he was wrapped in and kissed the Prophet's hands, which were as soft as cotton and smelled like roses with a mother's kindness. At that moment, when our Prophet was sleeping, he opened his beautiful eyes. He then gave a sweet smile as if to reply his wet nurse's kiss. Halima was left in amazement with this cute smile. She cuddled and embraced this divine child. Then something very strange happened at that very moment. Her breasts, which were longing for milk for so many days, now suddenly filled with milk. It was as if each breast turned into a fountain of milk. Halima was amazed. She thought about breastfeeding him there and then, but her husband was waiting for her. When she remembered this, she asked for permission. She said, "If it's not a problem, I should take the child and go now." They agreed and made a little sack for our Prophet's clothes. Abdul-Muttalib took the sack and Halima took the baby in her arms. She didn't want to put the down baby for a single moment. She said goodbye to Amina, but Amina's joy mixed with tears.